devolution.
Equity involves trying to understand and give people what they need. Equality aims at ensuring that everyone gets the same things.
Equity appears in our constitution 14 times. So why equity? And it's because we were coming from a background where we felt as a people of Kenya that the way resources had been utilized before in a centralized government, there was no equal opportunity for everybody to enjoy healthcare, for everybody to enjoy better roads, to enjoy better infrastructure, to enjoy water services, and to enjoy education and every other service. An equitable system at the point when we are allocating resources, an equitable system at the point where we are giving opportunities of employment and career progression, and equity perspective in how every person, including whether you are able or differently abled, is able to participate in this process.
The work we were given by the Constitution is to ensure there is equitable sharing of revenue, one, between the two levels of government, and number two, in sharing of revenue among the 47 county governments. But we also given the responsibility to determine who is marginalized and who benefits from the Equalization Fund.
Elgeyo Marakwet County enacted an Equitable Development Act, popularly referred to as EDA, of 2015, whose main objective were to realize equal and equitable allocation of resources for development projects within the wards.
We started with the CIDP. We recorded them. We went back again for validation with them to just confirm that indeed whatever they want, they wished and they wanted has been captured. We submit to County Assembly. County Assembly does the same program again until and when all of us we are satisfied that the views, the wishes and the aspiration of our people has been captured in this document. In this process, we come up with our goals under the leadership of His Excellency the Governor, where we prioritize some key areas that we are looking at, be agriculture, roads, health issues, manufacturing aspect, and now as we are talking, we are aligning with the Big Four agenda of the national government so that our resources and the resources of national government can move together in the same direction for the benefit.
What are those areas that you feel are the main challenges that are experienced by our people, which can be perceived as causing inequality?
The area that has bigger or larger space will not be in a position to be for the whole red network, maybe where there's any challenge of red network to be covered. So I think the same question lies with the allocation of the same funding. My wish it will be good if a certain word is bigger, it should be given a bigger share.
We have, at least we have got 2 sub-counties in Nandi. We may term them as marginalized. That is Tindred and Andai. So whenever we try to distribute the resources so equally, they may get us out because they are still marginalized up to now.
What can we say about education?
If you go to Tindred, you won't go at least 1 kilometer without finding a school. You can realize that. But apparently, the education levels are actually very low. The funding. So you find someone in Kapsabet getting the same funds as somebody in Tindred.
When you look at what do you call it, the nursery schools, the ECDs, they're devolved to the counties. What is the county doing about the ECDs? Because that is the beginning of access to education. So when you look at our illiteracy, is it a literacy or literacy level? Our literacy level is very low. So as a county, we really need to get down to our knees and ask ourselves, are we working on the access to education, so that we can say we have low access to education, but we have already provided that avenue. For example, you go to a primary school, you find they still have the matope. Madarasa bado ni za matope. Deep in Nandi, I've visited Kabiet, I've visited Kamulat Primary, and they still have those structures, and I really wonder where are we as a county.
While we are still looking at the challenges and the possible solutions, I would say that in as far as access to education is concerned, from the point of view of the county government, because the county government is mandated to provide early childhood education and coordinate early childhood education.
How are the citizens involved? What's their attitude towards the whole process? So that, let's say when you're budgeting, when you go to the ground and talk to them, are they ready to participate on what they really want? Are they, do they have the knowledge of what the role of devolution in the role of devolution to them as citizens?
In the budgeting process, public participation is done at actually all the levels of budgeting. The initial participation is done, like at the onset of budgeting, so that the public are involved. Once the budget has been prepared, we go back to the public again to present the same budget for validation.
With the way we normally carry out our public participation. So when we talk of the low turnout, sometimes I feel like let's not blame it on the keyboard terrorists. I know they are there, but they are not the major. So the issue is the communication.
Created a situation whereby the ward administrators are becoming governors of the ward. So it becomes difficult to reach them, and people have started to despise them. So the best thing is to try and find some unity between the it's called the national Mzomta and the county, the village administrator, so that we can be able to reach out to the people. Because at the end of the day, what we are targeting is our people.
This is our outcry. If in case we have a public participation, let's communicate through the chiefs. Like for example, my chief has got a Twitter account. We all have good Twitters in my area. If in case anything happens, we get the notifications immediately, and we turn up for the baradas and all that. So we really need to change the route of communication. That's very important.
We were supposed to tackle a question on policies that are in place.
So there's the civic education policy. It's a policy, it's a bill actually.
It's actually an act.
It's an act.
Yes, it's an act.
It's an act.
There's a board at the county, CBF,
County
Budget Economics Forum, that always before this document goes to the public, they go through it first.
We need to ask ourselves, scenario one, if you do this, what is the effect? Scenario two, scenario three, which is the most optimum, which is going to be the most optimum way out. That makes almost a win-win to all.
Information doesn't really get to the right people, and the channels being used are not accessible to people who need this information. As much as we would want to get rid and do away with poverty, then empowerment has to be done by having the right information, getting to the right people at the right time in an appropriate manner.
This attitude that is a problem to us. If we are going to, for example, have a finance bill, we are raising taxes, we are raising revenues, and we are doing the following. People in some areas which affects them most may not be there. But if you go to another area, they will approve in unison.
When we call people for public participation, like I'll give you an example. When we are doing the budget, we first come to the public and ask, in this area, what would you want? The people who come today, next time when you come back with that budget, it's a complete set of different set of people, and their priorities are not the same. And then what the community should realize and understand is, when I want something, for example, we are in Chepwellen area here, what is it that will benefit us as the community, not as an individual?
When they do their shopping,
does it mean we don't want other parameters that the public can raise something that can come up with parameters which can determine our economy? Some of the researchers would have sit down as a committee, and then analyze the other parameters which matters in our economy, so that we can factor in all. I think that it's something that you can go and discuss with your committee. The money account is given is for it to undertake the functions that county governments have. So what are the county government functions that county governments have? Health is one example that is fully developed. So as you're giving money, you ask how much money do county governments need to deliver healthcare. The other one is agriculture. You then must ask how much money do counties need to provide services for agriculture. How much money do counties need to deliver, to give water to their citizens? Because that's the other function. Then you have roads. They have class D roads and below. Then you must ask how much money should counties get to do roads. So it is the thinking is functions, the money must be for specific functions. They are not for everything. It is not to do education because education is for the national government. And we see a lot of county governments giving like 400 million for bursary. That is education which is a national government function.
The question you should say is, why should the Ministry of Agriculture give a lot of money at the headquarters? Now, what are why should the Ministry of Health put a lot of money at Abbey House where they even are unable to know what to do? They start imagining of building up containers. And one container, 44 containers, is more expensive than a dispensary. With the 3 rooms for a doctor, with the pharmacy, everything you can. So we want to say, national government, leave what is not yours and give us what is ours.
The inequality that we usually have people talking about is issues of employment. They say either there are more Marakwets or there are more KUs employed in the county government.
The quality that we need to address, especially in our county, is that we allocate a lot of resources, especially to health, which takes quite amount of the resources. But inside that allocation, we normally focus on curative, but we don't focus on preventive.
There are people who are very poor, and yet we may not see them. You might go to a village and find people who are starving. When we have actually allocated money to that sub-location, because nobody actually went out and said, these are the poor people. So can we also look at that? Poverty. Those people who cannot afford to Ujimudu.
When the ruling government that is in power right now came into power, it came up with a law that at least 30% of all the tenders and part of the jobs should be given to the youth. And when it comes to the youth, most of the youths are poor, or maybe they come from the backgrounds that are not well off. But we have these groups such as Uwezo Fund and maybe these funds, so it poses some challenges for them to access these funds. So my part of the solutions was that these youths should be maybe educated on how they can access these funds. They come up in groups, maybe form companies or partnerships. Then they bid for these tenders that are in the county. So by tendering the youth, by giving some of these tenders to the youths and the poor and the women, at least it will be a way of empowering them.
We should also consider insecurity as a major issue when it comes to development. And in terms of revenue allocation, I think this is one factor that probably CRA has never put into consideration. And I am sure that the county government must be experiencing challenges in terms of allocating resources and doing development in those areas that are insecurity prone. CRA should consider insecurity as one of the parameters or as one of the factors when they are allocating resources to counties.
The inequalities also we are facing is in to access to natural resources. Another inequality also in urban areas is there is a principle in taxation which states that if you are being taxed, you are supposed to get benefit equally from those tax.
There's a big problem with the roads. Therefore, it's it does not support the farmers, because when they harvest, most of the crops will not be transported because the roads are poor.
You know, the landscape of Iten, when they are grading the roads that goes along there, do they consider the drainage? Because when you grade, later on when the rains come, it goes into people's compound.
My main concern is about alcoholism in Elgeyo Marakwet. What can we do about it? And we find out that women are the brewerers. What can we do to them? Another one is we don't have a casualty at Iten Hospital. What can we do about it?
Thank you so much. I think a number of concerns which goes back to the inequality has been raised. And one you saw during the presentation of the chair that among the things they consider in sharing the revenue is the land size or the area size. And looking at Elgeyo Marakwet, you cannot, for example, comparing Uasin Gishu and Elgeyo Marakwet, the cost of doing a road here and maybe connecting the 3 levels of Elgeyo Marakwet is not the same. And I think one of the things that we need to fight is, can they consider also the terrain so that they look at the area size at the same time looking at the terrain. Some of the concerns that were raised here, we've taken note of them. The road which has been mentioned by Sheila, it's a national government road. We cannot allocate resources where it's not our function. I want to encourage all of you to be taking part in the public participations in our wards, because we allocate money, yes, we leave those people who are on the ground to allocate the money. Then at the end of the day, the elites or the people who are in diaspora, when you go back home, you realize that priorities has been misplaced. For example, the issue mentioned by Gideon, issues of empowerment. Unajua sisi tunaangalia maendeleo tu ni kuwa na darasa, but not looking at the quality of education within that school. On the issue mentioned by Ngobiro, the issue of casualty in Iten, we've been budgeting it. But sometimes when it goes to the assembly, maybe teach between prioritizing casualty in Iten and allocating money to develop a maternity in Chebarorwa. Definitely anataka kwanza maternity Chebarorwa before you talk about a casualty in Iten. Kwa mambo ya pombe, and I want to tell Ngobiro that we've invested a lot of in empowering our women. Hapa within just here, Ilula, there's a training center that has trained over 2,200 women wale wanatengeneza pombe, and it's a continuous process. If you think that your area bado wako wengi, there's still room for them to be trained. We always take them for training 1 week, then wakirudi nyumbani wanafanya kazi. And already now we have a group called Elgeyo Marakwet Women of Change. Wale walikuwa wanatengeneza pombe, chang'aa na kila kitu, but now they are doing other businesses and they are doing well.
How do we make sure that this ward and this ward are not left behind? You know, how do we make sure that we, you know, a concern that I raised earlier about urban areas, you know, and I think I've had this complaint in several counties, urban areas are the areas actually being left behind, you know, because you're developing where people are moving away from.
I'm delighted with the passion that CRA has in ensuring that county governments and the residents there get value for the money allocated to them. Could you kindly consider extending the national government also to account for what they get?